Wow, incredible movie, and we are so honored to be welcomed by the director of the film, none other than Deia Schlosburg. Thank you so much for taking the time, and first and foremost, may I say, thank you for making this film.
Well, thank you for sharing it with your audiences. Yeah.
Like I don't, I'm so conflicted right now. I have a million questions. I'll try to keep them down. But yeah, there's a part of it. It's such an informative documentary, but frightening on so many levels as well. Because I love how you really went down the supply chain, or the entire process. I think so many people think of the end. I want to find out what the impetus of going after a concept and a thought of a documentary on this scale. Where did that come from?
Yeah. So the executive director, Steve Wilson, like 8 or 9 years ago now, was working with the Five Gyres initiative, and learning. He was, doing transects across the oceans and seeing all the ocean plastic, um, and then having really profound interactions with people in the Philippines who were dealing with a lot of the waste that was exported there from global north countries, to deal with, and kind of exploring the idea of away and where away really is. And I thought that was compelling, but as a filmmaker, I am really motivated by kind of telling stories that I haven't seen told that way before, and as well as dispelling misinformation campaigns and really getting at why we believe what we believe. So for a couple of reasons, partly I kind of wanted to be able to bring more to the table, and partly like the funding wasn't right, the timing wasn't right. Fast forward several years, and I have done a lot more work in fossil fuel petrochemical industry and environmental justice work. And at that point, I felt like, all right, here's an angle on this story that I haven't seen yet. I've seen some amazingly beautiful films about the waste end of life kind of chapter of it, and I hadn't
Right.
seen the connection of fossil fuels and the beginning of life and the whole supply chain, and the environmental racism throughout the life of this product, and then on top of that, the kind of myths that we're led to believe that keep us looking at who's really controlling these levers, and organizing about it. So yeah, those things all kind of came together, and we dove into that, and wanted to get the idea was really to get a holistic picture of this system, because that's really what it is. At the end of the day, it's a systems issue.
Yeah, we've been sold. I mean, the story of plastic, I love how it dispels this myth, this rumor that the onus is on the user. And I love
Mm-hmm.
how you guys you do the deep dive, and no, we need to flip that. And we can, and like you said, it really it points just glaring holes into the process that these companies need and can be held accountable. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, not that we're off the hook as individuals. It's just that I think as individuals we need to shift our focus from being consumers to being citizens and taking part in democracy and policy decisions and structure.
Now, I know you're no stranger to getting out there and getting your hands dirty, whether it be, I think in 2009, you got the Nat Geo Adventure of the Year Award. But you also like things like Standing Rock. You're willing to put yourself in harm's way, to be arrested. Maybe talk about that kind of that activist aspect of your personality that you seem to be willing to to get a little
Um,
messy, so to speak.
yeah, I mean, I never intend to really be in those situations. I just follow the story that I think needs to be told, and that's kind of what happens. Um, I'm not really a thrill seeker or attention seeker, or like I would rather kind of just work quietly in the background. But when you're telling stories that put major global powers um, in a light that they're not comfortable with, there's um, some friction.
Yeah. What about, like I said, there's so many components, or I should say, chapters, sub story upon sub story that you went after. What's maybe the biggest one that really gave you pause or concern, where you had kind of had an aha moment? Like, I thought I knew a little bit about this, but wow, I didn't know it was this bad. Does one
Yeah.
stand out more than another?
Um, I think if I hadn't already done a lot of work with fracking and fossil fuel production and fence line communities, that would have really hit. But I've spent a fair amount of time on well pads and near pipelines, and um, so what was new to me, uh, I mean, yeah, I mean, what really hit me was being in East Java in Indonesia and seeing how much of the scrap plastic that they're dealing with is ours. Like, very
Yeah.
clearly from the global north, very clearly a lot of it is US based, and just how so few people know that and understand the global materials trade and scrap plastic trade, and the idea of waste materials being a resource or commodity. I think is never really talked about. We just think of it as new or used and waste, and there's a whole world in between those two things. um, in some cases it depends on the type of plastic, the quality of the plastic. um, there's just so much nuance that I really had no idea about, and I've been in this world of environmentalism and environmental sustainability for years and years, and it uh, hadn't really crossed my radar.
No, I know you got your master's in science and natural history filmmaking, but prior to that, I mean, did you grow up as a kind of documentary kind of film junkie, or was that kind of just a process that started to happen?
I actually grew up making movies, like for every school project that I could make into a movie, but it never occurred to me to want to be a filmmaker, because that just seemed like that's not something I can do or have access to or any. So it just didn't cross my mind at all until I was in my mid 20s and found this program in Montana, the Science and Natural History Filmmaking program. And it was kind of a light bulb moment. Like, this is a program that's designed for people with a science background who are really passionate about communicating that science and kind of breaking down this, like, at the time, this major anti-intellectual um, trend, which is unfortunately still happening. Um, but it was definitely a realization, like, oh, this is exactly what I've been wanting to do and trying to do, but without really giving myself permission to do it. So that finding that program was really pivotal for me.
Um, if I may, I want to tell you the scariest part of the film for me was the light bulb that went off when you basically revealed that the fossil fuel industry realize, obviously they see what's happening slowly but surely, and how we're moving away from fossil fuels with our vehicles and other forms of transportation, and what's their next play? And
Hmm.
clearly it's plastics, and it's unbelievable that the lengths they're willing to go to control the narrative. I mean, you also bring up some really scary stories of intimidation Were there some stories that didn't make the film that just further that point?
Um, there's a ton that didn't make it into the film, but we really, that part in particular, we did try to really get in the meat of it, because I think that is really the story of plastic. And that, yeah, it was really important that we highlighted that specifically.
Is there anything in particular that you're hoping that this will inspire and empower the viewers of this film? Something that they can take and maybe start to, we always say, how can I get involved? What can I do? But what should be their biggest takeaway?
Yeah. So the film was very largely inspired by the Break Free from Plastic global movement, and in particular, the formation of this movement came about because activists, organizers, scientists at all the different stages of this plastic process started talking to each other in all different parts of the world, and realizing that the narrative was different depending on where they were in the world, and how the different populations could best be controlled by different narratives. And they kind of busted that open by, interacting and sharing their work. So I would say the best way to get involved is to like plug into that network, the breakfreefromplastic.org movement. There's I think it's over 1,600 now organizations are part of that. And especially now in the world of everything being virtual, like you can plug into any of those, like wherever you feel most connected and most inspired, or wherever your abilities most align, you can get plugged into a group and not start, but like continue these conversations. And
Yeah, to add on to that though, I think watching the film, you see how reactionary we've been. We've done beach cleanups. We do this. Well, yeah, we're going to pick up and we're going to clean up the beach. It's well that no, you have to be on a proactive level. So there's a different part of the chain that you have to go after, right? So that's I think probably maybe it probably seems very overwhelming for so many people that care. They're used to showing up at a beach cleanup or surf rider event, but this is it's a little bit it's a different beast to go after on this level.
Yeah, it's more abstract when you're trying to head it off. It's a lot more in the policy realm, and I think it is very important for people to get involved in policy at local levels, because often, really, really successful local campaigns get emulated and on bigger scales. And like all the single-use plastic bans going on around the world, like they didn't start countrywide. They started, in localities and then expanded. So yeah, policy is really, I think, the most bang for your buck in terms of organizing and activism.
I'm trying to think of the installation that I saw back in New York. I don't know if I could. But it was all about plastic, and it was right off of Broadway. Did you have? I was there with Michael Conti. Yeah, it was an art installation made with plastic bags found in the East River. Okay, well now that I can't remember, it's going to be like I'll have to go and research. I'll send you the link. But my next question, I definitely want to know if this film, because I know you have like with the film Backyard, and it seems like oftentimes people that kind of jump into that documentary world is they organically kind of go on a path. Do you find that this film now is kind of you're going to lily pad into something well within the realms of this, of like with the plastic story? It's obviously it's unfolding as we speak.
Right. I mean, yes and no, not directly, but I'm actually working on a documentary series looking at universal basic income, following a trial all over the U.S. And it and I started these projects around the same time several years ago, and I've been just working on them in parallel. And there's way more overlap than one would think at first blush. So I think it's gonna seem like I'm kind of looking at a totally different, I don't know, path of work, but there's really quite a bit of overlap. Um, I thought I was kind of getting away from climate work for a little bit, but one of the stories in our series is a guy that is an ex coal miner who relocated to the the Carolina coast and has been hammered by hurricanes over and over and kind of became a climate refugee. So we're telling that story right off the bat, and yeah, there's overlap all over the place because you can't get away
Well,
from.
well, yeah. Case in point, in the story of plastic, without the severe, poverty and the way that this system takes advantage of that, if that did not exist, the process of basically pushing this away and letting it sit in, whether it be Indonesia, China, no more,
Mhm.
you know, them saying, you know what, okay, we've taken enough of your plastic and your trash. But without that poverty level, it couldn't exist the way that it exists now. Correct?
Exactly, exactly. And that's a
Yeah.
big reason I'm a proponent of basic income, is because it gives people the power to say no and the power to not be taken advantage of, to such an extent that people are now. It it lets people survive if they want to be activists, if they want to be really focused on being a citizen. They're able to sustain themselves.
Any big surprises that you were pleasantly surprised about, like hearing people's reaction to this film? After the showings that it's had, and
Yeah, I think, I mean, first of all, the response of our collaborators, our subjects in the film, has been phenomenal. A lot of them were at the premiere, and it's just like, as a filmmaker, that's the absolute best feedback I can get, is if the people who are sharing their stories in my film feel good about it and feel like they were represented accurately and authentically. And so that, above all, made me feel good about this project. Um, and then, as far as outside audiences seeing it, I'm a lot of friends and fellow filmmakers that are pretty connected to this topic told me they thought they knew this story, and they learned so much. They had no idea about so much of it. So that was really great to hear.
yeah, I can tell you that I was deeply enlightened, humbled on multiple fronts, thinking that oh yeah, I know that story. And I'm going to be telling so many people to watch this film because it literally blows the doors off of this story that we've been sold.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for making it. The story of plastic, director Deia Schlosburg. Good luck on your next project, and thank you so much for being part of the Coast Film Festival this year.
Thank you so much for having me.
We look forward to much more work from you. Have a
Cool.
good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.